BBC newsreader George Alagiah has died at the age of 67, his agent Mary Greenham has confirmed. In a statement, she said, "I am so terribly sorry to inform you that George Alagiah died peacefully today, surrounded by his family and loved ones. George fought until the bitter end, but sadly that battle ended earlier today. George was deeply loved by everybody who knew him, whether it was a friend, a colleague or a member of the public. He simply was a wonderful human being." She added that her thoughts are with his wife Fran and their sons Matthew and Adam. BBC's George Alagiah shares regret over NHS test that could have found cancer. A statement from BBC Director General Tim Davies said, "Across the BBC, we are all incredibly sad to hear the news about George. We are thinking of his family at this time. George was one of the best and bravest journalists of his generation who reported fearlessly from across the world as well as presenting the news flawlessly. He was more than just an outstanding journalist, audiences could sense his kindness, empathy and wonderful humanity. He was loved by all and we will miss him enormously." Broadcaster John Simpson continued via Twitter, deeply sorry to hear about dear George Alagiah. A gentler, kinder, more insightful and braver friend and colleague it would be hard to find. I loved having his company in the BBC World Affairs unit, and his progress after that was a pleasure to watch. Don't miss. George Alagiah steps back from BBC News as cancer spreads. News, BBC's George Alagiah in extreme pain as tumor site found. Insight, BBC job lifts me up and runs me down, says cancer hit George Alagiah. Interview, the Sri Lanka-born journalist, the face of BBC One's News at 6 since 2007, was diagnosed with stage 4 bowel cancer, which had spread to his liver and lymph nodes, in April 2014. He endured 2 rounds of chemotherapy and several operations, including the removal of most of his liver. In October 2015 he announced that his treatment was over and returned to BBC News at 6 on November 10. However, his cancer returned in December 2017 and he underwent further treatment before again returning to work. Appearing in a campaign in aid of Macmillan Cancer Support in 2022, speaking about the impact of his own experience of living with stage 4 bowel cancer, Alagiah said, "People always ask me how I cope and it's the hardest question. The challenge at first was getting my cancer diagnosis straight in my head, despite having so much going for me, a successful career and a loving family. Here I was just being told I was dying." In October last year, Alagiah announced he was taking a break from presenting the BBC's News at 6 following another scan. He said, "It showed that my cancer has spread further, so it's back to some tough stuff. I'm missing my colleagues. Working in the newsroom has been such an important part of keeping energized and motivated." George Alagiah, a look at his career. George Alagiah was a British newsreader, journalist and TV presenter. He started his career with the BBC in 1989 as developing world correspondent in London. He then moved to Johannesburg to be a correspondent in southern Africa. Topics he covered ranged from civil wars in Afghanistan, Liberia and Somalia to the genocide in Rwanda. BBC 4 News launched in 2002 and the Sri Lanka-born journalist kick-started the programme as presenter. The programme went on to be rebranded as The World, then another version of World News Today. In January 2003 he joined BBC 6 O'Clock News and presented alongside Sophie Rayworth until 2005. Natasha Kaplinsky was his co-host until October 2007, when Alagiah became the sole presenter. Since 1999, he had also been deputy anchor of the BBC 1 O'Clock News and BBC 9 O'Clock News from 1999. Throughout his career, Alagiah interviewed several high-profile people including Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Robert Mugabe, and Nelson Mandela. He was part of the BBC team who won a BAFTA award for coverage of the Kosovo conflict. He also won Best International Report at the Royal Television Society in 1993 and the Amnesty International UK Media Awards a year later. He was given an OBE in 2008. In 2010, Alagiah was awarded Outstanding Achievement in Television Award at the Asian Awards. He published his debut novel The Burning Land in 2020, and it was shortlisted for a Society of Authors Award.